Hey guys, tonight we wash ashore on a humid beach, thick with the scent of salt and hibiscus, where the stars hang low enough to graze with your fingertips, and the waves whisper secrets older than maps. The sand is still warm from the sun's retreat, and in the moonlight, a ring of men and women kneel silently before a fire, not speaking, not chanting, just threading shells one after another in a rhythm that feels older than language itself. You crouch nearby barefoot, unsure if you've stumbled into a ceremony or a warning. A breeze stirs the palm fronds above, and you realize the entire forest is holding its breath. So should you. You're not here for a luau. You're here to witness something stranger, something you won't find in a museum label or travel brochure. How Polynesian chiefs once sent coded messages across thousands of kilometers of open ocean, using nothing more than shells, strands, and trust. And if you get it wrong, you could accidentally start a war, or worse, marry someone. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all listen, from whether you're lounging in London or nodding off under a mosquito net in Nadi. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first shell you hold is no bigger than your thumb, pale pink, slightly chipped on one edge, but strung on its cord with such precision, you're scared to touch it. A young man beside you, not quite a warrior, not quite a boy, nods at it and says, "Only that one means morning." Then he hands you another long spiral, dark. This one that means wind is coming. You nod like you understand. You don't, but that's okay. Because in this world, language lives in the pattern, not the word. The islands stretch across thousands of kilometers, Hawaii, Rapa Nui, Aotearoa, and all the threads in between. Without paper, without ink, without written alphabets for centuries, the Polynesians kept histories on skin stories, in chants and instructions, in jewelry. And not just for beauty, not just for status, for communication. A shell necklace might say, "Come to council," or "Danger in the West," or "You are forgiven, but don't come alone." Historians still argue whether these necklaces were standardized across islands or unique to each chief's lineage. Some scholars suggest there were master messengers who trained for years to read the codes, like we read cursive. Others claim the meaning was never fully about the shells. It was how, when, and to whom they were given. Like emoji, but less yellow and more capable of ruining your marriage prospects. You sit quietly as the chief, his face painted with burnt coconut ash, carefully ties off a strand and places it in a carved box. The messenger, cloaked in woven pandana sleeves, bows low and accepts it like a priest would a relic. No one claps. No one speaks. Because the message is already alive. You follow as the messenger walks down a path, lit only by torchlight and moonshine. You're not sure where he's going, but he knows. His canoe is waiting dugout and silent, already rocking on the tide like it can't wait to leave. No guards. No paddle escort. Just him, the ocean, and the shell. A joke floats through your mind, something like, what if he drops it? But here, that's not funny. Because if he drops it, the message dies. And there is no backup. No second copy. No oops, I forgot to attach the file. It's one shell, one thread, one try, and off he paddles into the black ink of the Pacific, where stars glint like navigation runes. And sharks aren't just animals, they're ancestors, watching to see if you deserve to cross. The chief returns to his fire. Others follow. Some begin dancing, not celebratory, ceremonial. You hear drums faint but steady. Your feet ache, but you don't leave. Because you know something important just happened, even if you didn't understand a word of it. Tomorrow the shell might reach a rival, or a cousin, or a priestess waiting 3 islands away. And tomorrow a new shell might come back, maybe bearing peace, maybe not. But for now, you lie back against the sand, let the firelight flicker across your closed eyes, and think about all the ways humans have ever tried to speak when words weren't safe enough. Some sent ravens, some etched into wax tablets, But here they strung a message around your neck. And let the ocean carry your voice. The tide is lower this morning. You can hear it sighing out past the reef, pulling secrets back into the deep. The sand is cool beneath your feet, and the dew still clings to the pandanus roots. You walk with the apprentice, a boy no older than 12 eyes wide, calloused fingers already inked with the dye used to darken shell threads. He hums as he walks a tune without words, pausing every so often to scoop up something shiny and inspect it under the sunrise. This beach isn't just for swimming. It's a messenger's archive. Scattered across the shore are shells of all kinds, turban cowrie conch cone, and each one has a different meaning depending on its size, color, and how it's strung. The boy picks up a tiny green trochus and says, "That one's for birth," then tosses it back like it's yesterday's headline. He moves to a broken spiral, "Bad omen," he mutters. That one he keeps. You're trying to keep track, but it's slippery. This isn't a code book you can memorize. It's more like a living script, one that shifts depending on who's reading it. The boy pulls a bundle of dried cordage from his satchel and starts threading fingers, moving with the ease of someone born to it. They say shells remember the tide that found them. He tells you not looking up. So if you send the wrong one, the sea might take it back. You smile, unsure if that's folklore or instruction. Probably both. Polynesian navigation has always been wrapped in that same blend of logic and poetry. These were the world's greatest ocean explorers, after all. They sailed thousands of kilometers using stars, wind swells, birds, and clouds tools most modern sailors couldn't navigate a bathtub with. And yet, they did it barefoot in open canoes, without compasses, without fear. The shell necklaces called Le Niho Palawa in Hawaii or Taumata in some other archipelagos weren't always decorative. Some were strictly ceremonial. Others were literal messages. Strings of meaning passed hand to hand across islands like living letters. Historians still argue whether the encoding of meaning into shell strands was systematic or intuitive. Some accounts describe messengers trained from childhood to recognize shell combinations like music notes. Others suggest meaning shifted based on context, who sent it when it arrived, what was happening politically, spiritually, even meteorologically. Imagine trying to read someone's diary while also solving a puzzle and interpreting a mood ring. The boy stops and pulls out a particularly old strand from his pouch twine, faded the shells, dulled by time and salt. This one, he says softly, was from the storm year. You raise your eyebrows. He nods. The year 3 chiefs drowned? This necklace was sent to say, "We will not war. We will mourn." He hands it to you, and it's heavier than you expect. Not in weight of memory. The necklace smells faintly of wood smoke and sea salt. You don't know why, but it makes you quiet. A voice calls from the ridge above another apprentice, this one older with a tattoo forming along his collarbone, like a constellation wrapping downward. He gestures you both up. You follow. At the top of the ridge overlooking the lagoon stands the chief, not your first one, the one from last night, but a different man, broader, more decorated. His necklace is thick with whale tooth and carved bone. His stance is calm, but his eyes sharp as obsidian. He looks at the boy, then at you. "Do you know what you're carrying?" he asks. You glance at the shell strand, still clutched in your hand. He doesn't wait for your answer. Every shell was once a mouth. The sea fills it. Then we empty it. Then we send it out to speak again. There's a long pause. Then he walks away. Because that's how things work here. Lessons are dropped like seeds. If you're meant to understand, you will. Back down on the beach, the boy starts humming again. You help him pick up a few more shells. The tide is turning the sun higher. A canoe glides across the bay, its hull skimming like a fingertip across a drum. The shell strand in your hand clinks softly. You wonder how many voices it has held, and how many are still waiting to be heard. You wake the next morning to the sound of conch horns echoing down the valley, bouncing off the volcanic ridges, like old gossip. They're not alarms, not quite, but they are a signal, and you're learning quickly that nothing in this place happens without reason. When you reach the central meeting platform, the sun is already pushing gold across the carved stone floor. Around it, chiefs and messengers gather in quiet clusters, each adorned with shell necklaces of all shapes and meanings. Some are subtle, delicate strands of pink cowries strung like a smile. Others are bold, layered with thick polished discs and whale tooth pendants the size of your thumb. But one necklace stops you. It's suspended from a wooden frame at the center of the circle beneath a palm frond canopy like an offering. Thick braided cord, rich with deep orange and black shells. At its base, a single carved stone shell. Not real, not from the sea, but shaped perfectly smoothed by careful hands. It's not for fashion. This is a message no one will speak aloud. You watch as a woman steps forward, tall, broad-shouldered, with hair knotted high and scars like calligraphy along her arms. She lifts the necklace and holds it overhead. A hush falls even among the birds. The silence doesn't ask for attention. It commands it. Then she lowers the necklace onto a folded barkcloth bundle and steps back. Nothing more. No speech, no fanfare, but everyone reacts. A flurry of exchanged glances, a few tight nods. Someone exhales like they've just heard a story's ending. You blink confused. The boy from the beach appears at your elbow grinning. It's a peace offer, he whispers. No fighting next moon. You blink again. All that? From a necklace? He shrugs. It's how the chiefs speak when words are risky. Polynesian diplomacy could be like that, heavy with ritual symbolism and silence. Shell necklaces weren't just for decoration or status, though they certainly carried both. They were often used as mnemonic devices, a way of holding memory and meaning in physical form. In some islands, the order of shells told stories like lines of poetry. In others, the combination could signal allegiance, warning, welcome, or war. Historians still argue whether the full codes have been lost or just remain unspoken. Colonial records mention necklaces delivered before battles or during land disputes, sometimes accompanied by drums or chants, other times by nothing but a bow of the head. And in at least one French missionary's account, a chief refused to accept a food gift unless it was strung with the correct pattern of red and bone shells, which of course wasn't explained further. Because why make it easy? After the gathering disperses, the boy leads you back through the forest toward a stream. He hums a different tune this time, low, lilting, almost hesitant. He's not bouncing like usual. You ask him what's wrong. He shrugs. My brother is learning the carving marks. He thinks the necklace we saw had a death shell. You pause. What's a death shell? He points to the necklace, still coiled around your wrist from yesterday. Not like those. Not pretty. They're chipped on purpose. Cut flat like someone took a bite. He makes the motion with his hands. You only send one when something's broken. You glance down. All your shells are smooth, polished, whole. The chipped ones don't get sold in markets. They get sent in silence. The boy hops a rock across the stream, then stops. He pulls something from his pouch, a single rough-edged white shell tied to a short cord. See, he says, this one means no return. You send it with someone going to war, or going away. You ask why he has it. He doesn't answer right away, just pockets it again. You both walk on. The sky darkens that afternoon, clouds bundling like fists over the ridge. Rain doesn't fall yet, but the wind shifts and the birds get quiet. You help the elder weaver sort new shells brought from the southern reef. She's slow but sharp fingers, like reef crab's eyes that miss nothing. She nods toward the necklace you're still wearing. You kept that one. You nod. It's not finished, she says simply, until you give it. You ask who to give it to. She shrugs. Whoever needs to remember what you remembered. And you wonder if that's what all these necklaces are, really not messages in the modern sense, not locked codes or ciphers, but pieces of shared memory. Anchors for meaning. They aren't about the shell. They're about what the shell reminds you of. You think of the chipped one the boy carries, the carved stone one in the ceremony, the smooth pink one from earlier. Each one a line in a song too old to be sung aloud anymore. Later that night, under a roof that leaks just enough to find your sleeping mat, you trace your fingers across the shells still resting on your wrist. You imagine what someone else might feel if they held it without knowing the story. Would they feel the sand where you found it? Hear the boy's voice explaining chipped edges? See the woman who said, "It's not finished. Maybe, maybe not, but it's there. And tomorrow, maybe you'll find someone to give it to." Not because they'll understand, but because you need them to remember. The morning arrives with smoke on the breeze, pale threads trailing from the uplands where men gather to shape canoes. You follow the smell past the taro fields and the chatter of early fishermen mending their nets. Every part of this place hums with rhythm, even when no one is singing. Even the quiet here has its own tempo. You find yourself climbing the ridge path again, the shells at your wrist clicking faintly as you move. You're not sure why you're going, just that something in the air feels unfinished. At the summit, a new sight, a line of figures standing in a half circle, each one cloaked in dark kappa cloth and crowned with feathered headpieces that catch the light like fireflies trapped in bark. And in the middle, draped between two sharpened poles, is a cord thick with shells, long, heavy. Not a necklace this time, a sash maybe, or a banner. It sways in the wind like it's breathing. A woman stands beside it, chanting in a slow voice. You don't recognize the words, but you feel them. Her hands move in small gestures, pointing to clusters of shells, to gaps in the string, to a knot near the bottom, wrapped in black twine. No one speaks over her. No one interrupts. They're listening not just to her, but to the shell string itself, reading it. Because this isn't a decoration, it's a message. And it's long. Historians still argue whether these extended shell cords were records, messages, or both. Some believe they were used in ceremonial trials or land negotiations, each shell representing a witness, an event, or a turn of phrase. Others insist the cords functioned like a notched staff or a story mat tools to guide oral tradition and maintain precision in communal memory. You edge closer and catch a glimpse of the shells, small conches, circular cowries, fragments of coral bone, even obsidian. Some pierced through the center, others tied in bundles of twine. None of them match. And that's the point. Each one says something different. Each one is something different. It's a genealogy, someone whispers nearby. A boy not much older than the one from the beach. She's tracing the line of chiefs all the way back to the volcano. You blink. The volcano. He nods. That's where the first one came from. The shells prove it. You're not sure if he means that literally or metaphorically. But does it matter? In this place, truth wears many skins, and one of them is polished white and strung around your throat. You glance down at your wrist. You've been carrying the same little necklace for 3 days now, and it's starting to feel heavier. Not physically, meaningfully. Like it's picked up weight just by being with you, by being seen. So you do something strange. You slip it off, and you walk it to the edge of the gathering. No one stops you. No one speaks. But as you approach the shell cord, the chanter glances up. Her voice doesn't falter. Her hands don't still, but she tilts her head in the smallest of acknowledgments, as if to say, "Go on." So you tie your little necklace to the end of the cord, not on a pole, not in the middle, just at the very edge. Like a period at the end of a sentence you're only beginning to understand. When the chant ends, the sash is rolled with great care and placed into a carved wooden box. You half expect a guard to appear, or a priest, or someone with an official stamp. But no, just the chanter and 2 young women who lift the box and carry it down the path. One of them looks at you and smiles. She has the same necklace, almost. Yours had a tiny coral chip near the clasp. Hers is threaded with black stone. Similar enough to say we know the same story. Different enough to say, but we lived it in different chapters. Later, as the sky turns amber and the wind picks up from the sea, you sit near the canoes. A man carves curved ribs from breadfruit wood, humming through his nose like it's a habit. He doesn't speak, but at his side lies a necklace longer than yours, made from puka shells and fragments of green glass sea smoothed by sand. You point at it. He pauses, sets down his chisel. That one, he says, voice deep as lava flow. I wear that when I visit my cousin on the other island. You ask why. He grins. So they don't throw spears at me. And just like that, you understand a necklace isn't always a message. Sometimes it's a passport. Historians call this kind of adornment portable diplomacy, like a flag carried on your chest. In some places, a visitor might wear a necklace of boar tusks to signal they've come in peace. In others, the wrong shell could start a blood feud. There are stories, half myth, half truth, of warriors spared because they wore their grandmother's necklace and the rival chief recognized the pattern. You ask if people still do that. The canoe carver nods. Not always with shells, but yes, we still speak that way. And in your pocket, you have nothing now. You gave your only necklace away, but you don't feel empty. You feel ready. Because now it's your turn to listen. Tomorrow maybe you'll start making your own. Not because you need to send a message, but because you finally know what you want to say. Rain wakes you before dawn. It taps lightly at the roof, like fingers drumming a remembered song. You lie still for a moment listening, not just to the rain, but to the rhythm underneath it. The hush of leaves, the pulse of waves somewhere beyond the hill, a rooster, still uncertain if it's time to start the day, and below it all the silence of waiting. You pull your wrap tighter and step outside barefoot, the ground cold and soft with puddled earth. It's quieter today, not just the weather, the village too. Like everyone agreed silently to listen a little longer before speaking. As you pass the cooking shelters, someone hands you a warm root wrapped in leaves. Another nods at your wrist, noticing the absence of the necklace. No one asks where it went. They just seem to understand. You make your way toward the canoe beach again, but stop halfway. Something draws you toward the upper grove, a place people rarely go unless invited. The trees there are older, taller, crowned with clusters of dark green leaves and long hanging roots that form natural curtains. There at the edge of the grove sits an elder you haven't seen before. He's dressed plainly, no grand headdress or shell ornaments, just a wrap of deep russet and a necklace of polished black seed pods. His hair is gray, his hands are dark with age and salt, but when he looks at you, it's with the kind of gaze that makes you feel like you've been known for a long, long time. He beckons without words, so you sit, and for a while that's all there is, just sitting. The air smells like wet wood and ginger. He reaches into a woven pouch and pulls out a strand of shells. Not a necklace, a fragment, half a loop frayed at the end, like it broke or was never finished. The shells are different from what you've seen before. Flat pale discs punctuated by one crimson bead. He lays it in your hand. What does it say, you whisper? Not sure if you're supposed to speak. He smiles. What do you think it says? You study it. Count the shells. Notice the spacing. The way the red bead breaks the rhythm like a voice raised in a lullaby. I think someone stopped, you say. Right here. You point at the frayed end. They were going to say more, but didn't. He nods. Sometimes silence is the part that speaks loudest. He doesn't take the strand back, just leaves it in your hand, and begins to talk not about himself, but about the origins of the shell code. The kind of story you've only ever caught snippets of from market gossip and the half-laughed tales of canoe builders who never finish sentences. He tells of the island that vanished beneath the sea, where legend claims every chief wore a different necklace pattern, and to confuse them was treason. Of a storm so strong, it tore apart a message cord stretched between two outer islands, scattering its shells into the surf, leaving a war unresolved because the last words were never delivered. He describes a woman who wove her grief into a triple-strand necklace after her child was taken by sea raiders. Each shell had belonged to her son's toys, his favorite beads, his playthings. The necklace became an act of remembrance. She never spoke his name again. She didn't need to. Historians still argue, the elder says with a chuckle, whether these stories are truth metaphor or just old people trying to impress the young. You smile. But inside, you feel that the weight of the shells in your palm isn't historical. It's personal. You ask if he ever made a message himself. He looks away to where the branches sway. I did once, he says softly. To ask forgiveness. Did it work? He doesn't answer, but he taps his chest just over the heart. Then he taps the red bead. Then your hand. And that's enough. Later, as you descend the path toward the sea again, the rain finally stops. Clouds peel away like curtains. The sun returns not brightly, but enough to edge everything in gold. At the beach, the apprentice boy from before is carving something in the sand. You pause to watch. He's drawing loops, spirals, rows of dots. When he sees you, he grins. Message for the crabs, he says. You laugh, but your eyes linger on the spirals. They're familiar. The shapes remind you of the necklace the elder gave you, of the old chant, of the sash that carried a genealogy in shells. Maybe they are for crabs, maybe not. That's the thing about this kind of message. It's not about the receiver always understanding. It's about the sender being willing to share. You kneel and trace a line beside his spirals. He nods approvingly. Then you tie the shell strand around your wrist. The red bead faces outward. A question, a pause, a promise to finish what someone once began. You spend the rest of the day watching waves, not doing anything useful, not weaving or fishing or helping gather firewood, just sitting there, toes dug into the cool sand eyes on the tide, like it might carry some kind of answer with it. The shell strand remains looped around your wrist, the red bead catching sunlight every time you shift. A quiet punctuation, a mark you're starting to feel more than understand. Behind you, the village buzzes faintly. Tools clink, children shout, dogs bark in 3 different pitches, but none of it breaks your stillness. You're somewhere between presence and memory. Because the thing is, once you start listening for shell messages, they're everywhere. In the way someone ties their bundle of pandanus leaves, in the strand of beads left hanging over a carved doorway, in the pattern pressed into a block of fermented breadfruit, 4 indentations, 2 smooth shells beside it, a tiny carved fishbone embedded in the corner, and you realize the messages were never hidden. We just forgot how to read them. The apprentice boy from earlier comes over again. He doesn't say anything this time, just sits beside you. Quiet. He's clutching a necklace of his own, smaller, rougher, made of broken coral and 1 crooked shark tooth. You raise an eyebrow. Message, you ask. He nods, then leans in and whispers. It says, I'm not afraid of my brother anymore. You look at him, really look. How's he supposed to know that you ask? He shrugs. He watches me wear it. Then, as if that's explanation enough, he gets up and sprints toward the shallows, hollering at the waves like they owe him an apology. You smile. Historians still argue whether these necklaces were intentional codes, carefully arranged semiotics meant to carry clear meaning, or more like ritual language, symbolic and open to interpretation. Some believe the color and shape of the shells represented celestial maps. Others argue they were mnemonic devices, a kind of portable storytelling meant to trigger specific chants or histories when worn aloud. But among the islanders, even now, you hear another theory. Maybe it doesn't matter what the message is. Maybe it matters that it was made. There's a calm in that thought, like letting go of the need to always be understood. You reach for your own strand again, fingers running the shells in sequence. Shell, shell, red. Pause. You wonder if someone somewhere is holding its twin, the missing half of the loop. Maybe the person who started the message, or maybe someone meant to finish it. A chief, a cousin, a girl who never got to say goodbye. You start to stand, then pause, then stand anyway, because suddenly you're not okay with waiting anymore. You head toward the far side of the island, where the trees grow denser and the land begins to rise. You've only been this way a handful of times, mostly during yam festivals, or when someone's dog runs off chasing ghost chickens. The path is rougher here, made of twisted roots and sharp coral gravel, but you walk it barefoot anyway. You're looking for the woman with the bone comb. You don't know her name, only that she always sits with her back to the market and braids her hair with fish line. The old people say she once served as a courier, not of words, but of things. Tokens, triggers, warnings too quiet for drums and too sacred for gossip. And if anyone knows where this necklace came from, it's her. You find her eventually exactly where you hoped, under the breadfruit tree, combing her hair with methodical grace. Her hair is so dark it almost drinks the light. You approach slowly. She doesn't look up, but she says, "The strand you wear is not for you." Your heart jolts. Then who you ask? She finally glances up, eyes like polished obsidian. It's a return. You're just the hand that delivers it. You kneel, hold it out, but she shakes her head. "Not to me," she says, "to him." Then she points toward the sea, not the open water, but the reef channel, the one no one sails through, unless they're leaving for good. You hesitate. There's no canoe, no message on the wind, just the soft thunder of waves breaking on coral. "You'll know," she says, "when it's time." And just like that, you're dismissed. Or blessed. It's hard to tell. You walk back slower, the shell strand heavy now, not with weight, but with purpose. It's not yours, but you're responsible for it now. There's a message in your hands, and soon it needs to go. That night, you lie on your mat, staring up at a roof that smells faintly of salt and frangipani bark. You trace the necklace again and again until the pattern starts to fade into your fingers, like a lullaby made of bone and ocean. You close your eyes and dream of the reef. The reef waits. You rise before the sun when the sky is still the color of ashes and the birds haven't started their gossip. The air smells like wet leaves and something older, something bone deep. You tie the shell strand around your wrist once more, slower this time. Reverent. It doesn't feel like jewelry now. It feels like a key. There's no ceremony, no call to action, just this quiet sense of now. Now is the moment. You leave the village barefoot, stepping carefully through puddles and mud and the soft carcasses of fallen flowers. Behind you, the thatched roofs are still sleeping, curled up like giant turtles. Even the dogs are silent. As you reach the shoreline, the water glows faintly blue, not from sunlight, but from memory, it seems. And you finally see it. A canoe, not a big one, not for war or feast deliveries, just a slender outrigger with two woven mats tied to the middle beam. On one of them, another shell necklace, different, but familiar. The colors inverted, the red bead placed second, not third. Your heart skips. You step forward. The canoe's tied to a mangrove root, floating just enough to make it sway like it's impatient. Someone's waiting, but no one is visible. You untie it anyway. Push it gently into deeper water. Climb in. The reef channel is narrow and shallow in places. You paddle slow, careful not to scrape the hull. The outrigger hums with each push, a low vibration that settles in your teeth. And there, just before the channel widens into open sea, someone stands on the rocks. It's him. Not a chief, not a priest, just a man. Weathered, bare-chested, shell anklets ringing faintly as the breeze moves through. He holds the inverted necklace in one hand and nothing in the other. No spear, no basket, just presence. You stop paddling. Let the tide carry you the last few feet. He doesn't speak, but he lifts the necklace, holds it against his chest, then sets it down on a folded palm frond and lets the water carry it toward you. You catch it. Shell red, but reversed. The mirrored answer. Historians still argue whether these mirrored shell exchanges were literal messages, affirmations, denials, instructions, or more symbolic acts like gestures of alliance or even nonverbal treaties. Some suggest the shells themselves came from sacred beaches, only accessible on lunar tides. Others say the beads were marked with coded scratches, readable only under certain lighting. You don't care, because in this moment, the meaning is clear. The message was received and returned. A conversation without voice. A memory passed like fire from palm to palm. You bow your head, not because he's a chief, but because he's part of the loop. The one you now understand, you've always been in. He nods once, then turns and walks away up the rocks into the mist. Gone. No speech, no farewell, just completion. You paddle back slowly, dragging your fingers through the sea. As the sun finally spills across the horizon, light catches on the waves like glass shards and winks back at you. Not sharp, just honest. When you return, the village is stirring. You tie the new necklace, his necklace, around your mat post. You won't wear it? It's not yours to wear. It's a witness now. The apprentice sees it, says nothing, just looks and smiles, then asks if you'll help him weave one of his own. You agree, of course, not because you have answers, but because you finally understand the shape of the question. You spend the afternoon showing him the knots, the shells, how to soften the fiber until it curves like breath. He's clumsy, drops things, but he laughs every time, and that feels like the point. He picks a pale spiral shell for the center. I want this one to mean, I'm ready, he says. Ready for what you ask? Don't know yet. You nod. Perfect. Later, a woman from the next island over visits. She brings fish wrapped in seaweed and stories of windstorms and the priest who grew his hair too long and tripped during a blessing. Then she notices the necklace hanging by your mat. She stops, touches it gently, and asks, did he remember? You don't answer. You don't need to. She places a conch shell beside it, another link in the chain, and you realize something small but enormous. This isn't history. This is practice, a daily living salty ritual, each shell a syllable in a sentence that spans generations. The apprentice finishes his first necklace just before sunset. He holds it up triumphant, and the light makes the central spiral glow like a tiny star. You pat his shoulder. Well done. He grins, then hangs it on your doorway. For luck, he says. But you know better. It's not luck. It's language, and tonight you've helped it speak. Night doesn't fall here. It pours. A sudden warm velvet wave that sweeps across the village like a soft blanket being shaken out over the earth. One moment, the sky is streaked with gold. The next, it's indigo, dotted with stars that blink like old spirits trying to stay awake. You lie on your mat, the new shell necklace hanging beside your head like a guardian. The apprentice is already snoring a few huts down his rhythmic breaths, blending with the hush of the waves, the rustle of palm fronds, and the occasional plop of something mysterious falling into the lagoon. Then the drums begin. Not loud, not urgent, just steady, like a heartbeat. The chief is calling council. You rise, wipe the sleep from your eyes, and follow the flicker of torchlight toward the meeting platform. Others are arriving too. Fisherman Elders the tattooist, with the cracked laugh, even a toddler balanced on his mother's hip, chewing something unidentifiable. You sit on woven mats arranged in a circle. At the center, a basket, closed, wrapped in tapa cloth and tied with string made from coconut husk. Inside, you know what it is before anyone says it. A new necklace. The chief unties it, holds the strand aloft. It's short, just 6 shells and a single gleaming coral bead. But it hums with meaning. Not because of what it is, but because of where it came from. Another island, 3 paddles beyond the horizon. This is how they invite peace. How they say we remember the old promise. Historians still argue whether these council shell exchanges were diplomatic acts, religious rituals, or elaborate symbolic theater. Some say they were formal treaties. Others insist it was all metaphor, a dance of reputation and myth, stitched together with coral and cowries. But here it feels real. The chief says nothing, just lays the necklace on a wooden plank in the center of the circle. Then he turns to you and nods. It's your turn. You rise, step forward, and take the necklace with both hands. It's lighter than it looks, cool against your palms. The shells clink softly, like they're whispering something only you were meant to hear. Your job now is to respond, to shape a new message, to continue the conversation. But not tonight. Tonight is for listening. You return to your mat in silence. Later, you sit by the fire with the apprentice. He pokes at a coconut shell in the coals and asks, "What will you say back?" You shrug. Not sure yet. He nods. Maybe a blue bead. That means journey. Maybe. And a spiral shell. What's that one mean? He grins. You tell me. You laugh. because you've become the elder you used to roll your eyes at. But you don't mind. The apprentice hums something tuneless as he stirs the coals, and the fire crackles a soft reply. That night you dream of turtles, not the slow plodding ones, but the ancient ones, the kind that dive so deep they touch the sea's forgotten memories. In your dream, one wears a necklace. Its beads are made of glass bone, driftwood, and stars. It doesn't speak, just swims past, leaving a trail of bubbles shaped like commas, like it's writing something only the ocean can read. You wake just before dawn. The necklace from the other island lies on your chest. No one placed it there, at least not that you remember. The fire is cold, the hut is quiet, and outside, the sky is just beginning to stretch into color. You rise and step onto the sand, look east, breathe, and begin to plan your reply. It will take all day, maybe longer. You select each shell carefully, one for peace, one for memory, one for the storm that passed 3 winters ago and never truly left. You use a broken bone bead, not for violence, but for what's been survived. You use a pearl, imperfect and yellowed. Then you pause, reach into your pouch, pull out the apprentice's first spiral shell. It's not yours to take, but he sees you and nods. Use it, he says. It's meant to move. You tie it at the end. A tail, a signature, a question. When it's done, you hold it up. It shimmers in the morning light, like something alive. You wrap it in tapa, place it in the canoe, and paddle out alone. You don't go far, just to the deep place beyond the reef, where the current begins to pull outward. You float for a moment, then lower the package into the water. It doesn't sink. It drifts, carried by the tide. Like all messages, a shell of a truth wrapped in silence. And you paddle home lighter, because you know someone somewhere will answer. The tides shift again. You feel it not in the water, but in the rhythm of the village, in the way the wind curls inland instead of out, in how the dogs bark at the wrong time. Even the trees seem to sway differently, like they're listening to something you can't quite hear. Another necklace arrives. You find it wrapped in woven pandanus leaves tucked beneath a carved stone at the edge of the lagoon. No messenger, no footprints, just the package sitting like a whisper left by the tide. You unwrap it slowly. 7 shells, 1 bone bead, a long strand of dark fiber braided with a single white thread, woven through subtle, almost invisible, but unmistakable once you see it. It's a challenge. Not angry, not aggressive, but pointed. The message is clear to those who speak the language. We remember. Do you? The apprentice watches as you roll the shells in your palm. Where's it from, he asks. You shake your head. Not sure, but it's old. He doesn't mean the necklace. He means the idea. He means the message behind the message. Because some symbols don't belong to one island. They belong to time. Historians still argue whether these pan-Polynesian codes were coordinated systems or coincidental overlaps in isolated cultures. Some say it's evidence of ancient sea trade. Others call it collective myth-making. But either way, it makes your pulse quicken, because someone out there is still speaking the old language, and they're expecting an answer. You begin assembling your reply. It's not easy. This one needs to speak across the sea and the years. It needs to reach, and not just ears, but hearts. You start with a shark tooth polished smooth by time. It's heavy. It says, "We don't forget." Then a curved shell shaped like a crescent moon. That one says, "We watched." You braid them into thick cord weaving in tiny seed beads, dyed with root pigment. 1 blue, 1 red one, the color of dusk. The apprentice approaches with something cupped in his hands, a cracked ancient bead, carved with 2 notches. "You sure you ask?" He nods. "It belonged to my grandfather." You tie it in. That night you light the drum fire. It's not for cooking. It's for signal. The beat is slow-spaced, far apart, designed to travel farther than words can carry. The sound rolls over the waves. A question in rhythm, one you know someone will feel in their bones. By morning, a canoe has arrived. Just one, painted black on the underside, with eyes carved into the bow. They step ashore without fanfare, 2 elders and a girl young enough to be their great-granddaughter. They carry no weapons, no gifts, Just themselves and a single satchel. Inside, necklaces. At least 4. They sit around your fire and do not speak. Not yet. Instead, they open the satchel and lay the necklaces out like playing cards. Each one tells a different story. One begins with a not simple course tied too tightly. It means grief. Another is made entirely of mother-of-pearl shards, strung on hair fiber, the ends singed and sealed. It means we saw the burning. You add your necklace to the row, not as a rebuttal, as a chapter. The elders nod. The girl traces one of the spiral shells with her finger, then looks up at you and says, "This one sings." You nod. It's the apprentices. Later the village gathers, not for a feast, but for a listening. Each necklace is passed around, each shell held between fingers turned considered. The apprentice sits beside the girl. They don't say much, just watch, learn. The elders offer no speech, no decree, just their presence. And when they leave, they take only one thing, your necklace. No words, no promises. But as the canoe slips past the reef, one of the elders raises a hand and signs something in the air fingers, looping in a spiral. You smile. It's an answer, maybe even a thank you. You return to your mat that night with sand between your toes and salt in your hair. The apprentice curls beside the fire and asks, "Was that peace?" You shrug. Maybe. Or a warning. Maybe both. He nods, then mumbles, "I want to send one someday." You pat his shoulder. You will. Because the language of shells isn't limited to chiefs anymore. It's grown, spread, taken root in the quiet hands of those who feel deeply and speak softly. You've helped it endure, but it belongs to all now. And as you drift off to sleep, the necklaces return in your dreams, not as objects, but as voices. They laugh, they hum, they argue, they remember, and they wait. Because messages aren't always finished when they're sent. Sometimes they only begin once someone chooses to answer. The next morning begins with silence, but it's a full silence. Not the kind that presses in with dread, but the kind that stretches open like warm canvas, ready for a story to be painted. You sit up slowly, the woven mat creasing against your back, and the faint sound of the sea threads itself into your breath. Outside, the village is already moving. Fishers mend nets. Children chase chickens. A grandmother sprinkles crushed coral around her breadfruit tree. Life continues as it always does, but there's something different in the air now. Subtle, but undeniable. A tension not of fear, but of readiness. The apprentice is the one who says it aloud. They're sending another. You don't ask how he knows, because he's right. You feel it too. So you prepare not with defenses, not with speeches, but with intention. You spread your mat in the shade, bring out your cord, your shells, your tools. But this time, you're not the one weaving. You place it all in front of the apprentice. He hesitates. His hands hover over the shells like they're sacred. And in a way they are, because now it's his turn. He chooses a puka shell pale and slightly chipped but curved just so. He threads it onto the fiber, then adds a seed bead. Then another. Then a tiny shark tooth from the pouch he's kept hidden until now. You don't interrupt. You don't guide. You just watch. And as he ties each knot, his brow furrows not from confusion, but care. He's not just copying a tradition. He's building a message. Historians still argue whether younger generations understood the language as deeply as those who came before. Some say it was diluted with time. Others argue that evolution doesn't mean loss, it means continuation. One anthropologist even suggested that the shell necklaces were never about decoding anyway. They were about the act of sending, the commitment to being heard. You've come to agree, because as the apprentice ties his final knot, a small green bead nestled against a gleaming spiral shell, you see it in his face. This isn't just ornament, it's testimony. He finishes, then places the necklace on a folded cloth, careful as a lullaby. You both walk together barefoot to the northern edge of the lagoon, where the tide is beginning to rise. The air smells like salt and hibiscus, and gulls sweep across the sky in lazy arcs. There's no ceremony. You place the cloth on a driftwood plank tie, a tiny bit of tapa cloth to the edge to help it catch the wind, and push it gently into the water. The tide does the rest. And the apprentice asks, "Do you think they'll understand?" You answer with a grin. They'll feel it, and that's enough. The message is in motion now, carried not just by waves, but by the choice to send it. Back in the village, the drumbeat changes. Just slightly. Someone is humming again the same rhythm you heard in your dream. The same cadence that wove itself into that first necklace all those moons ago. It's not your rhythm anymore. It's theirs. It's hers. It's his. It's theirs. And you're not the keeper of the language now. You're its witness, its ancestor, its echo. You sit again in your favorite spot beneath the coconut tree, letting your limbs grow heavy the way they do after good labor. You feel the warmth of the sun settle in your bones and hear laughter drift across the sand. And you think, this is how the messages survive. Not in museums, not behind glass, but in hands, in hearts, in the quiet courage to try. You close your eyes. Let the breeze braid itself through your hair. You can still smell the salt, still taste the hush in the air before someone speaks something true, still feel the bead pressed into your palm that once meant, "I miss you," or "Come back soon." The island exhales. So do you. Because sometimes the best message is one you don't need to say at all. So now, listener, wherever you are drifting in bed, beneath the soft hum of your fan, or curled up on the couch with the night just beginning to lean over you, let yourself ease into this silence. Not the kind that feels lonely, but the kind that feels like holding hands with the world. Like standing on a beach at dawn and hearing the tide speak softly, just for you. Imagine that shell necklace now. Not just a piece of jewelry, but a sentence carved by waves, a whisper knotted into chord, a lullaby that traveled farther than any storm. Picture the hands that wove it, the thoughts that stirred behind its color, its shape, its weight. Maybe it said help. Maybe it said peace. Or maybe it just said, "Here I am, still breathing, still listening." And now let your own breath slow. Let it match the pull of the ocean, in and out, like waves on coral, like fingers threading through stories. You don't need to solve anything right now. You don't need to remember every detail. You just need to rest. Because even now, across islands and time and starlit shores, someone is still weaving messages into quiet things, into bread, into beads, into dreams. And maybe one of them is meant for you. So, rest now. Let sleep take the weight from your shoulders. Let dreams carry you, just like those necklaces carried truths. And when you wake, the message will still be there, waiting, patient, gentle as the tide. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. Maybe by now you've already drifted off to sleep, and if so, we hope this story brought you peace of mind and helped you rest a little easier. Deep sleep makes life better, and we're truly happy to be part of that. Until next time, sweet dreams.